Hey everyone, welcome. I appreciate you being here. I'm really honored to have Dawn Lester with me today, and I'm just going to ask her some questions about how she came to discover what she's discovered about the some of the deceptions and things that go on in this realm. And welcome, Dawn. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you, Joel. Thank you very much for inviting me on. This is great to have a conversation with you, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, oh, I appreciate it. Dawn and I got to meet at Music and Sky about a year and a half ago, and that was I really enjoyed your share. And just appreciate that you're very much in your heart, and that you speak truth in a way that a lot of people can connect to. And so I wanted to ask you just what your journey has been, how you discovered some of the truths about health and some of the deceptions around what we're told in academia and the media, and yeah, just what it's been like for you up until how you got into this line of work.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster in a way because I mean, when I was little, I kind of felt sort of a little bit um, disconnected from things. I was often told to, oh, you're off in your own little world again. Um, and, and as far as health was concerned, I very rarely had anything wrong with me. I
Mm,
hardly ever went to the doctor, anything like that. I didn't have a big uh, sort of deal with health particularly, but as I say, I just, you know, uh, I just didn't go, as I say, didn't go to the doctor, didn't have um, time off school. I wasn't sickly in any way. So there
yeah.
wasn't a health challenge for me in the early days that may have been the kind of precipitation into that world. It, but I kind of went into it from a strange angle because, well, in the mid 90s, and I think I've shared that I had a diagnosis of I'm going to be careful because this is on YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had a diagnosis. I went through the standard treatment, and at the same time, from somewhere, and I don't know where, there was an inherent understanding that
Mm,
my mindset, it was up to me to sort myself out, that I needed to make changes in my life. There was something, it's for me to do. It wasn't just submit to the mainstream. And I suppose I was pretty lucky with the people I saw. I never had any doom and gloom kind of conversations. I never had those horrible messages that a lot of people get that they then have to work hard to overcome. So I started making some changes in my life that led to my ending my marriage in 2001. And after that, that took me to starting exploring different things. Started with a Reiki course, and then that moved into discovering, sort of looking more into the nature of reality, that took me to a body of work called the Seth material. Are you familiar with that?
yeah, wow. Yeah, powerful stuff.
So yes, that really resonated, and uh, because I love reading anyway, so it wasn't a problem. But I dived into all of the main body of work, the nine main books.
Yeah.
So I really read through those, and it made sense. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, about channeled material," but I think it's it's when there's something that resonates. It's not necessarily the messenger; it's the message.
Yeah.
And it was through that that I started to get a different perspective on
Mm,
life and what it was, and on what I'd experienced. Um, and looking in all of that, because understanding the nature of reality is like, well, who and what are we? What is this body, and how does that all work? And the
mm,
idea that illnesses are you know, acts of nature, not even nature, just things that attack you. That didn't
Mm.
seem to make sense. So it was like, well, hang on a minute, how do we get ill? So I was working with David Parker, who eventually wrote the book with, that we were saying, well, hang on a minute, how does illness work? Came across the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton and the
Yeah.
biology of belief. So that started to tie things in together. And then that started a whole roller coaster of research into, you know, how we get ill. And at the same time, I was looking at lots of the other stories that we've been told, you know, about things like education, money, you know, like the moon landings, the climate change, just so I was looking at all of those. So it wasn't totally a sort of narrow view on health. It was the bigger picture, because I kind of am a bigger picture person. So I look at the puzzle pieces, put them together to get a perspective on what's going on, really.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's the overview that took, you know, that ended up taking a number of years, really diving deep into the health and what's behind it, how it all, how this system became how it is. Because again, I'm just being careful here. How the system got to be the way it is,
Yeah.
um, and also my perspective is how to then help people come out of that. So, you know, I really appreciate what you said about, you know, my approach, because there are a lot of people out there just going, ah, scary, scary stuff.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help people say, well, okay, scary, scary stuff, but what can I do about it?
Well, that's so
So
good.
that's really my main perspective, is to say, well, okay, this is what we're being told. What can we how can we view it? And again, you know, from the perspective of I won't say understand, because that sounds like I know it all, and I certainly don't. But how I view what's going on from a different perspective, knowing that we influence our own experiences, and so what that actually means, and what and how much we can, how much action we can take, how much agency we have over our own experiences, really, and our own lives, and what, you know, what we can actually do, as opposed to sit there in the fear.
Really well said. I'm so glad to hear that. There is a lot of people that are in fear, and then when they're of service trying to help people, they want you to look at and wake up to certain truths that are pretty disturbing, and then people kind of get caught in those rabbit holes. And I think those rabbit holes are designed to entrap, just like the lies are designed to entrap. And so it's a real fine balance. So I'm glad that you're out there presenting a more uh, love-based, proactive model. I think that's going to be critical moving forward. And yeah, is that something you do, you work with people one-on-one? Or do you offer that service?
Yes, I do. I have. I mean, I've worked with a few people. I've got a couple of people I work with at the moment, really to help them help themselves. I don't, you know, again, because I'm coming from the place of freedom, I don't tell anyone what to do. So, because that was something else when I was little, I didn't like being told what to do. So I suppose there was that little rebel inside, even though I was quite quiet and shy when I was little, but there was still something there. Um, and it isn't for me to tell people. And so sharing information, and it's such a good point you made about the rabbit holes, because they are there for, I mean, so many people can spend a lot of time going deep, deep, deep into them, and I think however deep you go, that there will still be parts that people don't know, because again, this is the certainty. People want certainty, so they're looking down all of this, and it's like, I've got to know, I've got to know what's going on, I've got to know, you know, who's in charge, who's doing this. And so again, that's the perspective that of, you know, well, I'm a victim because people are doing things. So it's understanding that there are people doing things, and it's how much we choose to fall into that. And I mean, I say I didn't go like deeply into the rabbit holes, but just enough to understand what is not true, because so much of what's going on is about us unlearning what
Yeah.
we think we know, or we thought we know, and finding that there's so much more mystery, which is exciting,
Mm.
except that the indoctrination system teaches us to look for certainty. And the more you look into this, there isn't the certainty.
Mm.
And it's also amazingly mysterious. And that can be really beautiful and wondrous, and that opens us up to having different experiences. Um,
Well said. Yeah, that's where I really look to the Castaneda material, and they talk about, we don't want to follow the ups and downs of our fellow man, and we don't want to be attached to the collective outcome. It's very personal. And I see a lot of truthers trying to fix the world rather than really face their inner work. And then they feel really jaded, as things don't go the way they're hoping to. And they start to promote a lot of, we need to stop this. We need to, kind of be on the front lines and wake everyone up. And I just don't think the majority of people are meant to wake up. I think this is a very sort of almost like a rite of passage for people like you and I, who are here to experience a really profound perceptual freedom that doesn't require people around us to be on the same page at all. And there's a like a real individuation, or as I talk about, aloneness becomes all oneness. You start being okay with your aloneness, and it leads to being connected directly to source. And there's just so much healing that happens in your heart. And then I look to like healthy relationships now as sort of the key to understanding where I'm at with my own wounding. Because I had a lot of male teachers that were misused their power. So I'm struggling to make male friendships. I'm like, have some armor that I have to face around opening up again my heart to being a friend to people. And so if I were to skip that stuff, and try to just isolate, be a hermit or whatever, I would miss out on so many uh people that could come into my life that could be, real breakthroughs. So yeah, I love what you're saying. And we it's been good to connect with you in this Telegram group that we've connected in. It's a lot of friendships that are growing inside of that. And so I'm curious with your journey, having come out of a divorce and all that, have you faced any armor in your heart in the past, that have you been de-armoring over time, and what kind of your spiritual process has been with relationships and friendships and family?
mm, oh, interesting. Just one thing, I did, uh, I think it was only one, it may have been two books. I did come across the Castaneda material probably about just over 20 years ago, same kind of time that I was looking at the Seth material and um, oh, so many of those sorts of books, and the other one, um escapes me, but those sorts of books, I mean, the kinds I mean, Power of Now, just all of those, just so that was, but I didn't get into all of the Castaneda material, so, and that was a while ago, and I haven't read them, so I'm not
Yep.
as familiar with the detail. um in terms of relationship, yes, de-armoring, yes. um I Yeah, I've, even from being, again, going back to being young, there's so many things that sort of keep coming back to me. It's like remembering, but again, when because I felt on the kind of edge of these different groups, I was never like in the center. And if people would stop talking to me, or lose friendships, I built this, and I recognize it as armor, as, oh well, their loss, if they didn't want to know me. um and not that I actually felt that, it was just, like you say, armor, I mean, absolutely. um so did that help me? I don't know. I think part of it, I had, I had problems, I think, with female relationships.
Yeah.
So there were, I mean, the two of us, I have an older sister. Um, so there was only my father was the male figure in the house. And I didn't get on, see this, didn't get on very well with my mother or my sister. Again, I felt different from them in a way. I couldn't
Sure.
really relate. So again, I learned to be okay on my own. I've always, I am okay on my own. And at the same time, I don't want to be a hermit all the time. So it is
Right.
that balance of having that all oneness, which I love that, and at the same time, mixing with people, having relationships. So I've been learning to have female friendships, and I'm
Mm.
honored to say I have a number of them now.
Wow.
All new friendships, all the friendships and new friendships since 2020, because before that I had um, lost contact with all previous friends and family. So nothing to do with the 2020 stuff. It's long before that. So I had already been,
Mm.
um, I'm not going to use the word reject. I'd already been estranged from
Yeah.
my family, including my son as well. And that's something I've had to learn to process, to work out, to yes, I mean, some of it was, well, do I fall apart or do I go on? So it's not been easy, but it's been a long time. I'm not saying time is a healer, but time, you just get get on. So, so if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing. So I
Yeah.
think part of that is, and thank you so much for saying that. It hasn't hardened my heart. I mean, it could have done. I think I possibly put a lot of protection, and like you're saying, the armoring, and
Yeah.
I'm still working through the armoring
Yeah.
because it's again not easy, and again seeing your reaction of separating from or being separated from my son is uh, yeah, it's been an interest it is still is an interesting journey, and at the same time, um my yes, it hadn't hardened, but again the armoring, I think so that's still coming down, that's still loosening and breaking apart, so yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dawn. That's hard to hear, but it's also, it's these lessons that we get from the people we're the closest with when they're kind of upfront, really opportunities to learn so much because it is so personal, and these are like rites of passage. So did the estrangement come through the discoveries you made around the deceptions and you speaking truth to power, and or was it other stuff?
No, it was simply that, or it seems to have been, to say simply, but because I mean, I initiated the divorce, so he,
Got it.
if you like, kind of took his father's side. That's how I perceived it. I mean, I made many attempts to make contact, and he didn't respond. So I don't
Wow.
actually know, um, because he didn't really communicate when there was some communication, it was not very good. He wasn't opening up to me.
Yeah.
And then there was no communication. So I don't know, but it was before I started speaking out.
Yeah.
Um, and because we we wrote two books that were published 2010, one about the nature of reality, but one about it's actually why germs don't make you ill and drugs can't cure you, but again 2010. So
Wow.
we were already kind of on this um, path of the deception of the medical system.
Sure.
But by then he'd been out of my life for a while, so no, that and at the same time, I suspect, because of what I knew of him at the time, it may well have caused a eruption between us. So I just maybe I was saved the later one. I don't know. I don't know. But I didn't lose contact with any friends or family because of speaking out. So I haven't had the experience that a lot of people have had recently, and certainly, since 2020, of being made to feel that they are conspiracy theorists, for want of a better term, or don't know what they're talking about. They're crazy. They're this, that, and the other. So I haven't faced that, and so which is interesting
Mhm.
because and then I've looked at it and I think how many of my friends that I used to have, they probably would have thought I was crazy. So
Yeah.
I may have lost them anyway. So I don't know. It certainly has been and still is an interesting journey. And it's just amazing to connect with so many wonderful people now who are helping
Yeah.
me learn so much more than I ever thought I knew as well. And I'm continuing to learn and willing to let go of what I thought I knew. So I'm still sort of opening up.
Mhm.
It's as I say, it's a continuing journey. Interesting, bumpy, but interesting.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's interesting for sure that you didn't, because 2020 was such a catalyst year for so many, and that's kind of where I lost a lot of people in my life for speaking out around what I sensed was happening, and I didn't wake up to the vaccine virus side of it until then. I mean, I had read Sanctity of Blood, but unfortunately I had let my kids get a first round of vaccines, and then I was able to stop doing that, which I think was hopefully helpful. And I was really sick as a kid. My parents kept sending me to the doctor every time I had a symptom, and they were just giving me so many antibiotics. And so I was just constantly had bronchitis, and they just kept sending me back. And it just was such a vicious cycle. And, I haven't gone to a doctor since I was 12 now, and I haven't had any problems since. I just stopped outsourcing myself, and I took started taking psychedelics and started getting some awareness around things, and started training with shamans like at 13, 16, and started doing the energetic stuff, and going into the wilderness, going into the forest, really forest bathing, essentially just separating from the masses, and started spending a lot of time connecting to trees and to the sun and to the earth. And that's just been an incredible life because my parents never took me camping. It was always just Disneyland and stuff that was very, kind of mainstream. And so to extract myself from their world and start spending time with people that were in a more expansive place has been such a gift to discover at such a young age. And but it led me into some dangerous territory with really powerful people that, ended up misusing their power. And so it's a tricky dance to sort of, move into spiritual practice because there's a lot of stuff that maybe starts off clean and ends up turning culty. Have you ever experienced sort of a spiritual journey that was a little unstable, or what kind of, uh, have you ever explored religion or got into anything that was where you had to sort of extract yourself from, or anything of that nature?
Not in that way. I was going to say it's interesting that you say that when you were little, you had so many,
Mm.
as you say, antibiotics, but going out into nature and separating yourself, and and again with the energy, working with the energies, I would have thought that would have been incredibly healing for you,
Yeah,
because the more I'm still learning, the real healing comes through kind of energetic
yeah,
parts of it rather than the physical. Now, that's not saying that the physical parts of healing, with respect to, um, exposing yourself to, toxins or EMS or that kind of thing, but it is the mindset as well. Um, with religion, I always found uh, well, sort of questioning, although I didn't ask because I was so shy, I didn't ask people. With the religions, I always thought, well, if one's right, then all the others are wrong. That didn't
yeah,
make sense.
yeah,
And, if God is everywhere, which I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've ever fallen into atheism as such, although kind of questioning what God or whatever, what this, you know, the creator, and my view on that has shifted over the years. I now refer to the divine as opposed to God, because I think there's so many kind of connotations. But back when I was little, the idea, well, if God is everywhere, why do you have to go to a building to talk
Yeah.
to him? So I felt that I felt maybe drawn to have a direct connection with source, felt more appropriate, and I still feel that. So organized religions always have their middlemen to
Yeah.
guide you in the direction of whatever it is, and the way things are according to them. So I don't follow religions. At the same time, I'm definitely not an atheist. I definitely believe in the divine and in this being a creation of some description that has a purpose, that has a function. I don't believe the function is malevolent, although that doesn't mean that there aren't people and other beings or something that have uh, less than helpful ideas of what to do, and at the same time they can still be our teachers, because it's whether we choose to fall into believing that they have power, or whether we, and again, in terms of the power of what our power is, it's our power is only through our connection with the divine.
Wow.
So it's yeah, what we can do and how we can be in this realm. And it's still an amazing mystery, and there's definitely some rocky times at the moment that I think are making people argue amongst themselves, and seeing things differently, and I think there are people behind that are stirring it up and trying to get us not to uh, see things, not to connect, because they know that when we do connect, when we're
Mhm.
coming from an understanding of who we are, from the heart, from and recognizing our power, that we actually do have an incredible sense, an incredible power to be, and not to fall into their system. And of course, that's one of the things that is not helpful for the system. But at the same time, I'm being careful to not say that we're victims of the system. It's how we learn, and so knowing who we are and connecting with others. So it's always the being individual and connecting to others. It's not that we can only be on our own, because on our own there's only so much we can do, and it's not falling to being in this mixed in this sort of um like mindset, the I don't like people could talk about sheep, but sort of being in the same mindset as other people, and having to follow everyone else and be followers of what's going on. And we can only do things together, and we have to think the same way, because that isn't helpful, because we are individuals. So by having our own ideas and thoughts, it's the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So we can, working together, we can create something far more beautiful than we can individually. And it's still to be recognize our own individuality. So it's a balancing act that I think a lot of people maybe not as seem to think it needs to be either one or the other. And it's finding that way of saying, no, it's both, like you say, the all oneness, and still having connections, relationships of whatever sort with other people, and community as well, and whatever that means to people. So it is that both. It's both and. As our mutual friend Eileen McCusick said, she's a bothist. It's sort of, why does it have to be one or the other? It's like, well, both and. Okay. And I think that's a good way, because, recognize we're always being pushed to make choices.
Mm.
And when I mean, there are times to make a choice, but it's choices between one or, and when sometimes it might be neither, or it might be both, or it might be something completely different. So this is where the kind of discernment comes in, of being able to not get pulled into things emotionally when all these situations, and being drawn into something from emotion. So it's a reaction,
Mm.
and sometimes just saying, okay, that's what's going on. Let's take some time out, have a look, see what it is. What do I know? What can I know? Do I need to even look at it? So yeah.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, I've gone off all sorts of different directions there, but
No, that's
pulling a
really
few threads.
it's very similar how I see the world now, and really glad to hear you say it the way you did.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very liberating to come out of the hive mind, and that so many people want to know the truth, the answer, and have it something they can write down and stick to it. And it's very much living in the unknown, and the mystery is to be in a more expansive view, discerning as we go, being open to unlearning more. Hypnosis it's a real thing, and people are under a spell, including me. There's certain areas in which I'm just still easily manipulated or pulled into division, and so I'm healing from that. Especially with 2020, I got a little I got into some anger around what was seeing everyone in their masks and just covering their beautiful faces. And I was the only one in my world that wasn't doing it, so I was getting a lot of energy thrown at me, and so I learned a lot about my capacity to handle that kind of attention on me. And in the Castaneda world, our kind of the main focus is reclaiming our attention, that we become very distracted, and that it's easy for us to go along or involve ourselves in the current affairs, and that I think it's very energy harvesting type of stuff that goes on. Even in the alternative media, you're seeing it start to become toxic, and very arrogant way of talking to people, that if you're not awake to this, then you're an NPC, and I don't think that's the truth. I think everyone has awareness that if you scratch the surface, eventually you'll find that there's profound. Someone could have a near death experience, then all of a sudden they're totally available to learn and unlearn. And so we don't want to categorize people in a way that is demeaning, but that's really it's hard to watch how much of that division is occurring. And then there's like an ego dynamic that comes with that, where people put themselves above others. And in the Toltec world, we say you either put yourself above or below. So we'll look to someone that we see as really what we think of as aware or enlightened, and then we put ourselves below them. Or in religion, we'll put like a religious god figure up, like that's above me. I have to worship that. And so finding that neutrality, where you come out of being a victim, but you're not a victor, you're not victorious, you're not in your ego around that. And so I really appreciate the way you explained that. And we refer to detachment as well, not in a like where you don't have compassion, but where you're able to observe things from a neutral place, so that you can be an observer. You just suspend judgment for even just for a moment, can bring in the most profound clarity. So yeah, if you have anything to add to those concepts.
Yes, the concept of hive mind was the sort of thing I was trying to, the phrase escaped me for the time being. Yes, there are a lot of distractions, again, pulling us in different directions to, uh, uh, I think, encourage us to look elsewhere. and to get caught up. And again, yes, it's the energy. So in terms of detachment, I totally understand that it can be really misunderstood. Because when I talk about that or write about things to do with health matters and what's going on, and people having whatever it is, I always make a point of saying I'm not denying people have symptoms, because when they say, oh well, it's not a virus, I go, well, you mean you say that nobody was ill? That's not what I'm saying. But you get that response when when you say something and people misunderstand what I'm saying. So I always make a point of saying I'm not denying people have symptoms. It's what that actually means. And again, in terms of language, there's so many labels, and so people get caught up in their labels. They attach to them. They think it's their identity, and so it's a question of being careful how I choose my words about how to explain. But certainly in 2020, because the book What Really Makes You Ill literally was published. I mean, it was self-published. It literally went through on Christmas Eve 2019, so just before. So again, you see, because of what I had learned about, the nature of reality, who we are, that was divine timing, absolute divine timing, because it came out at as I say, just before that all happened. And I thought, oh, great, the book's gone out, then, people will read it and they'll understand and it'll be all right. And, we'll be able to, we're helping people understand what's going on. So, well, it didn't happen like that. So, and there were times, yeah, I probably had anger. I mean, one of the things that for me in 2010, 2020, the word for me was surreal,
Mhm.
because it did feel like it did feel surreal what was going on, because I like you, I didn't put any face coverings on. I wouldn't, I actually, um, it's not a phobia, but it would certainly agitate me a great deal to have something covering my face in that way. So I wouldn't have done anyway, because I mean that goes back to an experience I had when I had a tooth extraction when I was very young, and it was through, I had the gas. It was like, oh, don't like that. So anyways, that distraction. But so yes, there were lots of emotions going on in 2020. So I totally understand, and I did have that sense of, why are people getting it, what's wrong with them, because people would actually walk out into the road to walk around me in the
Yeah,
street, and I think you're putting yourself in danger to walk in the road, actually, off the pavement and into the road
yeah,
to get past me. And there's just yes, it was difficult to think, what's wrong with these people. So have been learning, I am still learning to view it differently. And like you, I don't view them as, NPCs. I'm doing my best not to attach labels to these people, because I totally agree. And the way I see it is that I don't know, maybe those of us who've been looking at this stuff either for a long time or very deeply for the last few years, we're here to say, no, you don't have to go down the rabbit holes. And we're here, and we're quite actually, we're quite decent people, really. We're quite nice. And here's our hand when you're ready. You know, we're here.
totally.
We'll welcome you, as opposed to you're stupid and sheep and stuff, because people aren't going to want to go towards people who are um, basically being rude to them, if you like. I mean, I suppose, they see it as being rude, and it would be off-putting. And in terms of, let's see, for me, I'm not even sure that there is an alternative media, because there seems to be different layers. There's what you might call a more mainstream alternative media. There's some very big platforms in the so-called alternative media, and they have a limited range of what they are sharing, and a lot of it is the fear stuff.
Yeah.
oh, I've got to be careful, this and this is coming, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen part of it, which is obviously making people more afraid, and it's making people think these things are inevitable. And I don't accept the inevitability of all of this. It doesn't mean to say it's not rocky. As I say, we've got some energies going on, but I don't accept it's
Mm.
not even that there's one inevitability, that because there are all sorts of different ideas of what might happen. And yeah, things are moving in certain directions, and it still doesn't mean it's inevitable. Um, I think I'm an eternal optimist, although I'm sort of practical at the same time. So I'm not denying reality. So I get that again is another foot in both, one foot in each camp, to be not just optimistic, but to know that we aren't doomed to go down this path, and at the same time recognizing what is going on and what we are being deceived about, because there's a lot of what's going on is not true, and what we can actually find of what's not true. So yeah, it's a bit of a dance at the moment between all these different steps of different parts, and I just don't accept that this beautiful realm
Right.
is capable of being destroyed. Now it's a
Mm.
lot of things are going on. I just think there's a purpose to it. There's a deeper meaning of
Yeah.
behind all of this, and I'm still learning to find ways to articulate what that is. So it might just sound like blind optimism, but it isn't. It's not blind, because we've there've been world wars, but the world didn't end. you know and then when you
Wow.
find out that that the the whole nuclear thing is a hoax as well, so there's no big red button to push, you go, okay, well, that's a relief.
Right. It is a relief. Yeah,
Mm.
that's really powerful, empowering to know. Yeah, my teacher, a medicine woman I trained with in El Paso, Texas for many, many years. Very beautiful medicine woman. She said forces rise to meet each other. And so we are dealing with forces, but there's balancing forces that are available. So this is a spiritual warfare realm, but we're capable of incredible capacity as because we are unknown to ourselves, and so we are in a time where those discoveries will become very powerful as a means to ensure that this realm is that the beauty is preserved. And it's just so powerful to be in the presence of divine consciousness. And it's the creator force feels very psychedelic. It's like a very beautiful loving energy that's very funny. And so I think irreverence is just as important as reverence. That we laugh at ourselves, we make fun of situations, we enjoy ourselves immensely and not take ourselves too seriously, but also be practical about the what's coming for us. This transhuman agenda is disturbing. And so being able to look at both sides of it. And the Toltecs said that the most beautiful one, the most difficult thing that happened for them was when the conquistadors came to hunt them down. That's where they discovered their power. They figured out how to be like ninjas and how to free themselves in all kinds of unique perceptual ways, and that there is this divine protection that comes in when you trust it. And so our ability to develop that relationship with Source will prove to be the most incredible process, and we don't have to be at odds with what's happening. In fact, Toltecs say we spend our whole life being offended by one thing or another, and that's what keeps us separated from our power. So I really look at everything as a necessary process that we're going through, rather than a doom and gloom perspective at all. So I appreciate your ability to balance your positivity with your practicality.
Yes, that's amazing. The laughter part of it is, yes, sometimes it's not easy, and in many ways, it's people who can either make us laugh or make music so that we can have that joy through, and come out of this seriousness, although it is taking yourself seriously, but not taking yourself seriously. And there's, understanding, yeah, not taking yourself too seriously, that you lose the wonder and the joy and the childlike part, or the inner child, if you like, that wants to just, say just have fun, wants to have fun. And this realm is beautiful. I mean, again, one of the well, yes, one of my passions when I was young was the natural world. I used to love watching those programs and reading books. I learnt so much. Um, I actually wanted to work with animals,
Wow.
but in the biology lesson, I was probably about 11. It was the lesson where we were being taught to cut up a frog, and I'm afraid I couldn't do it. There were two of us, and we just sat out. I couldn't do it. I mean, the smell of formaldehyde was awful. But the two of us, we were just at the other end of the room, just looking out the window. We just could, and so that put paid to me being able to follow that. Although I don't know, maybe I was sort of safe from going down a particular route because I know the way animals are treated, but not in terms. See, I loved. I don't know if you ever come across the either the book or the book, the series. The first one was My Family and Other Animals. You
No.
heard of that? Oh, okay. It was the guy who wrote it was English, and he used to do, I mean, I'll keep it brief, but he used to go on animal collecting expeditions to bring them back for zoos. And
Oh, wow.
then he decided it wasn't necessarily a good idea. So he set up his own. It wasn't a zoo, it was a conservation. This is Gerald Dull I'm talking about, who, and he eventually created his own conservation. It
Mm.
wasn't exactly a zoo, but he went out and he collected endangered species, so he would be looking after them. But anyway, I still think probably because of the predominance of the germ theory, I would imagine that even then the animals would have been um, looked after from that perspective, because this is the thing that when you look at the germ theory and the problems with the medical system, it isn't just a tiny little part of it. It goes out into so many other aspects of our lives, and that's why I'm just so passionate about putting out the message of these entities do well, the so-called germs, they aren't, well, viruses aren't real, as you know, because I did watch your conversation with Tom Count, which is really interesting. Oh, that's something I've got in common with Tom Count. Also, I used to read Russian novels when I was young, or maybe not as young as he was, but I in my teens, I used to love
Yeah.
reading Russian novels. So, but yeah, so I mean, I know with your conversation, he's completely, well, he's shown a long time ago, but again, he talked to you about how it's absolute nonsense. And the more we learn about what the body is, I have serious questions over the ability of the medical system, or even with the transhuman agenda. There are certain parts of it, and I just think, no, there's something magical about the human body that I don't think it can be overtaken in the way that is being suggested. Our bodies are not just machines. They're not weak. It doesn't, like, again, you talked, as Tom said, autoimmune disease nonsense. It's not, they're nonsense because the body does not attack itself. The body is amazing. The body is brilliant. It is not stupid. It's not just some inert bag of bones and blood and a few organs that can just be attacked so easily. So I feel that there's a lot of fear mongering. I'm not saying there isn't an agenda, and I'm not saying there aren't efforts to do all sorts of things to affect us. And at the same time, because our bodies don't work the way we've been told, I think it that isn't going to happen, or it can't happen that way. So, our bodies can't be taken over. And so that's also part of my message, to help people understand that their bodies aren't just, inert machines that can just be attacked by anything. There's so much more power. And when we understand that, we get that sense of that, then we think, oh, actually, no, yeah, I can do more. I don't have to be a victim to X, Y, Z. So again, it is the victim part of it. We can be made to feel, oh, we're a victim of these agendas. And say, yes, there's something going on. And as you're saying with this spiritual war, I think this is what is going on at the moment. It's a, I'd say lesson. I don't know if lesson's the right word. I mean, it is a learning opportunity, and that's why the message has been turned up so loud, for
Yeah.
us to say, okay, well, are you going to give up now? Oh, we turn it up, turn the heat up a little bit. Are you going to give up now? And so we're all stepping up and saying, no, we're not giving up.
Beautiful. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, what really was the most disturbing thing was the teachers in my life that were very aware of our spiritual power and our capacity to self-heal through perceptual means. To see them promote vaccination during that time, putting on masks, to, requiring people to wear masks at the workshops, and it literally broke my heart. These were really psychic people, really tapped in, really good dreamers. I've been training with them for so many years, and I tried to tell them, like, wait, what? Like, I just invited them into some concepts that where they literally cut me out of their life. And, so I just, yeah, just really am still mourning that loss, but also really thankful because it forced me to come to terms with what I could offer and teach, realizing that I had learned so much from them, but that they had not been able to put the picture together at that time. And so I was just planning to be a student for life, and it kind of forced me into a leadership role where I'm now teaching these arts that they taught me, but from a different lens. And I found really gifted people because of it, because in the conspiracy theorist world, there's some real warriors, there's some real powerful people. And so I'm thankful ultimately, but still a little heartbroken. And so I just wanted to speak to that. If there was anybody that you looked up to during that time that, kind of showed their true colors.
W Well, first of all, I would say I'm just astounded to hear that people on that spiritual level didn't see it in that way. Again, amazing. I mean, I know a lot of leaders, not going to name names, but some of the big names in the so-called spiritual world
Yeah.
were full on the mainstream narrative, and that was, whoa, pardon,
Right?
wow. So yeah, it was quite surprising. Was there anybody? um I can't think of anybody. Um I mean, during my research years, long before 2020, I mean, I've always loved music, and so discovering discovering how the music industry had been taken over, and how, a lot of the bands were um, created. They weren't just random musicians that just happened to get together. Because I came across Dave McGowan's work in well, it's before he died. He died in 2015 or something, so probably 2013, 2014, something like that. So, and that, I think, if anything, it was more the kind of musical heroes, the big bands, I, like the big rock bands. It was a bit of a rock fan. So, um, yeah, like the Beatles, Doors, Led Zeppelin. I was just like, oh no. So I suppose once I'd got through that, I learned. I mean, it wasn't like an overnight thing, but over the years, it was okay. Don't have heroes.
Yeah.
Um, and the more I looked, not everybody, no, nobody has all the answers. So there's nobody to put on a pedestal because they know it all, because nobody knows it all. And part of that was gave me a bit of a problem because I did start off for a while thinking, oh, well, they're talking about that, but then they're still talking about viruses as if they exist. So it's like, oh no, you don't ignore the good part. It's not, don't throw out the baby in the bathwater. So that was something to learn, not to dismiss people and to realize that, they really know what they're talking about. It's just disappointing when they are, when you regard them as good researchers and they don't look at that, or they don't want to look at something that is pretty profound. And the health, the no virus thing is I think really important because it's fundamental to understanding how our body actually works and how we can then take control of our own health and that of our family and that of succeeding generations. Because when children are subjected to all these procedures, it does affect their bodies, and more of them are being administered at a really young age, and that is definitely affecting children's health because small children should not be experiencing chronic conditions.
Right.
Um, so, um,
Mm.
so I kind of don't have heroes, although there are some people I have a huge amount of respect for still. And I'd say I'd put Berlando in that category because of his incredible experience throughout his whole life. Um, Tom
Absolutely.
Cowan as well, because of, like he explained in his conversation with you, just how he approached, he did what he needed to do and then to get the qualification and then practice the way he wanted to, which I think is, very, very powerful, very courageous and really good. And I suppose Stefan Lanka, because he was speaking out against, and he was the first researcher who I came across that really helped me get through well, it's not just HIV, because that was I think it was probably the first one I came across. It wasn't just that one, it was all of them. And
Yeah.
so I'd say, but again, it's I don't know, just learn not to have heroes, because then again, that then you feel that they're unapproachable.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to all three of them, and they're not unapproachable, so they're not on a pedestal. So yeah, and yeah, I've had the honor to speak to all three of them, and
Beautiful.
met one of them. So that was Bearlando, but and the other two merely, through this system, which has its uses. So yeah. Um, but yeah, definitely disappointed in people in the, as you say, spiritual community, because that felt the place that I thought they would have understood that
Yeah.
this was like you say, more of a spiritual war. It wasn't just about physical um, interventions.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I agree with you that, it I think putting someone on a pedestal is a disservice to ourself and to them, because if they accept the pedestal, then they're ungrounded. they're being uplifted and they're not going to be down to earth. If and so any contribution that goes toward pedestals is, I think it's just unnecessary and not helpful. And I've witnessed people start out in their heart and end up on a pedestal and start to move more into the delusions of grandeur because of it. So I think we all play a role in ensuring that doesn't happen to ourselves and to people that we admire. And yeah, just being able to relax and be calm in the presence of people that have a lot of knowledge and power is, it's I feel bad for people that are famous and have all that attention on them. They can't it's because people come to them all nervous and are, want like expecting them to say some divine message or something, and they're just humans. They just want to, have friends. They just want to be left alone, really. And so there's a price you pay for moving into leadership and teaching and being up on the stage talking about stuff that people want to hear. And so we have that opportunity to just be humble and thankful and respectful to our communities. And in my workshops, it's we're just all gathering in a circle to do some, unique movements that put us in silence and to talk about subjects that are dear to our hearts. And I'm thankful to be able to, you know, be the one that anchors that process. But I seek out counsel and have teachers of my own, and that keeps things in check, So we want to be honest about our wounds when we're in a leadership role, because then it gives people that capacity to talk about their struggles, and so that they're not trying to lie or deceive to themselves. And yeah, I'm so impressed with Dr. Berlando's how humble he is, and truly the experiences that he had, and the fact that he was able to combine that with athletics, education, gain his knowledge, and have that shamanic background. It's just such a well-rounded individual. And I love what him and Mike do for the community and with Music and Sky and everything that's come out of that world. And it's how we got to meet. And yeah, I'm just really
Mhm.
thankful for these people that are willing to talk about really difficult subjects and be called conspiracy theorists and to have these labels projected. It's actually really liberating. So anyone out there that's listening, if you are feeling scared to talk about the things that you know to be true, there's an opportunity throughout our life to start to come out of fear and to just have the courage to speak your truth, especially in social settings where it wouldn't typically be accepted. But there's also a time to be discerning, and you can get really beat up if you're surrounded by people that are disgusted or really thrown off by that stuff. So it's a dance, and it's good to make connections and use Facebook or Instagram to connect to people who are like-minded, because that's the only way I was able to get through all that stuff. Was I was getting really isolated in Seattle during 2020, and so I went to the internet and I met so many people, and because of this, I'm talking to you. If I would have just turned off the computer and sat there and not had the courage to, branch out, it would my life would be so different. So I encourage people to find connections and friendships. And I'm so glad you got to go to Spain and hang out with a bunch of people that are like-minded. And that's really cool. I was listening to Andrew Kaufman in our last call. I interviewed him yesterday, actually, and that's going to come out today. Brilliant man. And I appreciate his awareness. Between him and Steve Falconer's perception on the digital ID, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Because Steve's saying, hey, they already got the digital ID going. Like it's not like that's not already in place. We're being monitored. We're already tracked. It's this whole thing that's kind of already in place. They're just making it seem like something to contract around. Where and then you got Kaufman saying, "Hey, let's be proactive and do everything we can to ensure that it doesn't happen." And so I appreciate both perspectives, right? It's Steve's taking the fear out of it, and Kaufman's not being fear-based. He's just saying we can opt out, for as long as we can. And there's a lot of power in that. So when I travel, I opt out of all the things, and I'm totally comfortable with that. I don't feel like I'm being judged. Some people snicker and, make fun of me or like say things, but I'm okay with that. So there's a lot of freedom in not being afraid, but also being willing to be that person in the room that isn't going along with the masses.
Yes, that's very interesting. As you say, the different perspective, and again, Steve and Andy are two other people I have a huge amount of respect for, and both of them really amazing with their knowledge. And as you say, they're slightly different perspective, and think, oh, okay, that's interesting. That not that they're mutually exclusive, as you say, they're different ways, and. So with Steve, I mean, yes, with what we're doing, we know we're being monitored, so we could, like you say, isolate ourselves and not connect. And that would be losing an opportunity. It's a question of making sure we don't allow it to take over our lives, to use it to benefit us, as you say, to be able to have this conversation, to have conversations and arrange meetings and organize, and at the same time meeting in person is so important, and I think there's a real hunger for more of that. That certainly was the case in the with the people I was with in Spain, and a couple of weeks ago now, that there's definitely a real desire for having more in person, because there's something special about being in each other's, with each other, like in our energy. There's something that's more powerful. Again, it's being with other people, and so feeling that sense of power, because on your own there's only so much you can do, and then with others it really helps boost you. And I love the way you're saying within your own groups that it's in a circle and you're leading it, but not the leader. If you like, you're sort of directing it, so it's, I mean, that's a true leader, isn't it? Helping guide others and recognizing that other people may have other contributions of something that you may not know about. So again, it's encouraging other people to open up and recognize who they are. And I mean, for a while I was reluctant to actually talk about my own experience, because I thought, well, so many people have experiences where they've lost people, and so I was reluctant, and I thought, well, is it me just saying, oh, look at me? And so I struggled with that for a little while, and then realized that it has a place in helping people understand, not because of, oh, look at me, look what I did, but more because I've actually found that I mean, I'm not unique. A lot of people have worked their way through these diagnoses and come out the other side. It is reinforcing the importance of understanding who we are and not falling victim to what we're told about what's going on or what is going to happen. Again, air quotes on going to happen, because it doesn't have to, and that's through understanding like the placebo effect and those. And so there's something solid behind that, and so building on that to help people understand who they are, what they can do, because that is really what this is about. So again, with what Andrew Kaufman was saying about, let's find alternative ways. That, I mean, I certainly didn't travel when there was a requirement for, well, it was America was the last place to hold out, and I wanted to, and it changed just before that Music and Sky, and so I was very relieved that I was actually able to travel, because I would not have traveled if the vaccines had still been a requirement. There's no way I would have done that. I have a
Mhm.
slightly different, I mean, as being British, I have to have my fingerprints taken when I go into the States.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Oh,
requirement. And as far as, I mean, it doesn't often happen, but sometimes going through the machines, I know, my body is okay. And it just depends on what else is going on and where I am. And so I think it's to know what feels right for you at any one time, to be comfortable with what you are prepared to do it for, as I
mhm.
say, the right reason, but from the right place, so like you say, and not everyone's happy to go through that process. And some people have had some horrible experiences and some people just sail through. So it does start from how we feel as to what we are prepared to do. And we can stand up in ways that don't mean that we're out there, in the street screaming and shouting. We can do it in various different ways. And so we're each finding our way of being out there to help people and say help people. I'm it might sound, oh, we've got to, I'm not trying to save the world. Again, that's another something else to remember. It's just if sharing information and then people take that and take actions according to wherever they are. So as you say, not like you were saying, not sort of trying to push things on people, because if we do that, we're then suggesting that we know better than them what they should do. It's like, okay, this is what I know, and if that helps you, great. Ask me some more questions. I'll let you know what I know. And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know. Because this is the other thing to be comfortable with, I don't know when, yeah,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of things. And so sometimes I say, well, I'm not sure, I'll look it up or I can find out. Or if I don't know, maybe I know somebody who does. But
Yeah. Oh, that's very, yeah, the I don't know is huge. And I appreciate Mark Gilbert in his journey is just saying, look, I just don't know. And he keeps repeating that. And, but he's asking such profound questions that it really helps people to come out, especially with his background, having been super indoctrinated, and his transformation's been really incredible. And he's become a friend, and he's taken
it,
some of the training with me. So it's really cool
oh,
to,
wow.
yeah,
Okay. He's somebody else I have a lot of respect for. And again, I have met him as well. And he's a lovely guy. And yes, he's amazing. And he's absolutely fine with sitting in the I don't know.
yeah,
When he does know a lot at the
yeah,
same time. He doesn't pretend to know what we do, if he doesn't know. No, as in no, he goes, well, I can so because I mean when people ask me, well, if it's not this, why do people get ill? Well, so I can't give you the answer. I can make a few suggestions and I can give you some ideas and I can throw some speculation, but I don't know. But I can give you some a few ideas of the kind of things that might be involved
yeah.
or the
Oh,
questions to ask. So, again, that's, yeah, the I don't know, because we're indoctrinated at school. You've got to know the answer, get
yeah.
your ticks on that little test.
Oh,
So it's built into us that we think we want to know.
yeah. Oh, wow. Really good to talk with you, Don. How can people, what would you like to share about how people can reach you, or what anything you want to add to this conversation to wrap up?
Probably the main place where people can find my work is on Substack. On my is dawnlester.substack.com. It's called Dawn's Writings. That's the articles, and I also started a podcast a few months ago. Moving into this world, it's interesting. So my podcast is also on Substack, and that's called Dawn of Discernment. So it's discerning what we know, where we know, having these, like you having amazing conversations with people. So yes, it would be lovely to return the compliment and for you to come on my podcast at some point and have a conversation and share what you know about the Castaneda writings and the Toltecs and everything. So that would be lovely. So yeah, that's the main place where people can find my work. And if they subscribe, they'll receive emails of articles, and within that, they will also receive information of different projects I'm working on, and different things. So that's my main protocol. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, um, I'm on Telegram. So I can people can connect with me there. It's just for people to know where my work is. I mean, it's possible to connect with me through Substack as well, but that's where people find out what I'm up to and what I'm working on.
Awesome.
So
Well,
thank you
yeah,
for this opportunity. Thank you.
yeah, really appreciate your writings and yeah, just your presentation of Music in Sky was really powerful for me to listen to, and just wanted to make sure people knew about you that don't. And I'd be honored to come on your podcast eventually. So let me know when that works for you. And so thank you, Don. Really good to be with you today, and thank you everybody for being here. We'll stay in touch. All right, take care.